Okay, picture this. You've got a scatter plot full of messy, real-world data points, just two totally chaotic overlapping groups. And somehow, you need a computer to cleanly separate them. How in the world does a machine decide exactly where to draw that line? Does it just, take a wild guess? Does it try every single possibility? If you've ever wondered how algorithms actually make sense of these seemingly impossible visual challenges, well, you are definitely in the right place.
Okay, let's dive into this. Welcome to the Explainer. Today, we're demystifying support vector machines, or SVMs. Honestly, this is one of the most elegant, versatile, and just downright powerful solutions in all of machine learning for separating complex data. It is an absolute powerhouse. And as you'll see, it's brilliant for both classification and regression.
So, here's our roadmap for the Explainer today. We're going to start simple and build our way up. We'll hit 1. The widest possible street. 2. Handling messy data. 3. Nonlinear boundaries. 4. The kernel trick. And we'll wrap up with 5. SVM regression. All right, kicking things off with section 1. The widest possible street. Imagine you're tasked with drawing a straight line between two distinct groups of data. Let's say two different species of flowers. Now sure, you could draw literally any random line that perfectly separates them, but an SVM classifier, it's way smarter than that. It doesn't just slap down a single thin line. It actively hunts for the widest possible street to separate those two groups. It's looking to build this massive buffer zone, a large margin classification, so there's plenty of breathing room between the classes. So the crucial point is, not all data points actually matter when we're paving this street. You could add thousands of new data points miles away from the street, and it wouldn't change our decision boundary one bit. The entire street is completely determined or, supported by just the specific data instances located right on the edge of the pavement. These VIP edge cases are literally what we call these support vectors.
Moving right along to section 2, handling messy data. Now, in a perfect world, we'd use what's called a hard margin. A hard margin is super strict. It dictates that absolutely 0 instances are allowed inside the street. No cars on the road, period. But the real world is messy. The second a single outlier drops onto the wrong side of the data, a hard margin just fails spectacularly. It either becomes mathematically impossible to draw a line, or the street becomes so terribly narrow that it's practically useless. It's just way too sensitive.
The fix for this real-world messiness is a soft margin. With a soft margin, we get a dial, a hyperparameter called C. And this dial lets us strike a really careful balance. A smaller C value gives us a nice, wide street, but it allows more margin violations. It basically lets a few outlier cars park on the pavement. On the flip side, a larger C value makes the street much narrower to strictly avoid those violations. So it's all about finding that perfect trade-off for your specific data.
Actually, listen up, because this is a massive practical takeaway, especially if you're writing code. SVMs are incredibly sensitive to the scale of your features. If you use unscaled data, you're going to get these skewed, narrow, completely uninformative decision boundaries. But if you apply feature scaling, using something like scikit-learn standardizer, boom, you suddenly get these perfect, wide, highly accurate boundaries. Seriously, feature scaling is absolutely non-negotiable for SVMs. Don't forget it.
Okay, section 3, nonlinear boundaries. Let's look at a classic, tangled dataset. Imagine two interlaced shapes looping around each other. You can clearly see that trying to draw a rigid, straight street through this mess to separate the groups is physically impossible, right? Our trusty linear street metaphor has finally met its match. So how on earth does an SVM handle data that loops and curves back on itself? And this brilliantly illustrates the solution. We can handle nonlinear data sets by physically adding more features to our data. By squaring or cubing the data values, like adding third-degree polynomial features, we are essentially mathematically bending our street so that it perfectly hugs the complex curves of the data. It's like turning a stiff ruler into a flexible tape measure. And you can push this even further. Look at this highly complex decision boundary, mapping out an intense 10th-degree polynomial. It looks amazing, super flexible. But there's a huge catch here. Pushing your data to a 10th degree polynomial means computing millions of new features explicitly. If you actually try running that, your computer will literally grind to a painfully slow halt. It is just way too computationally expensive to calculate all those new dimensions by hand.
Which leads us perfectly into section 4, the kernel trick.
So we have this massive contrast in workload.
The explicit, slow method forces the machine to physically compute millions of high-dimensional features. But the kernel trick? It is an absolute game changer. It's a dual-problem mathematical shortcut. It instantly simulates the exact same result, that same perfectly curved street, using dot products without ever doing the actual heavy lifting of creating those new features. It's essentially a brilliant mathematical illusion.
A huge industry favorite for this trick is the Gaussian radial basis function, or RBF, kernel. Instead of adding a bunch of polynomial features, it acts as this really powerful similarity function. It drops down landmarks inside your data and then measures exactly how much every single instance resembles those specific landmarks. It maps out highly complex data patterns smoothly and effectively, completely bypassing that massive math headache we talked about.
But a quick rule of thumb for the practitioners out there writing the code. You've got a choice to make. Linear SVC does not support the kernel trick, but its time complexity scales beautifully, meaning it is blazingly fast for huge data sets. Standard SVC, on the other hand, gives you the magic of the kernel trick, but its time complexity scales terribly. It gets dreadfully slow as your training instances grow. So here's the takeaway. Use linear SVC for churning through massive data sets, but switch to SVC when you absolutely need those complex curved boundaries and you actually have the time to train it.
All right, let's move to and see how this builds into Section 5, SVM regression.
Up to now, it's been all about classification, keeping groups separate. But to really grasp SVM regression, we have to take our visual metaphor and flip it entirely on its head. Instead of trying to keep cars off the street to widen the gap between groups, how do we fit as many cars on the street as humanly possible? That totally backward logic is exactly how SVM regression works. Instead of maximizing a margin between classes, it's trying to capture as many data points inside the street as it possibly can, and it controls this using a hyperparameter called epsilon. Epsilon dictates the exact width of your regression street. You set the width, and the algorithm tries to fit the data right onto the pavement, all while strictly limiting the outliers that fall off the sides. It's pretty clever, right?
Bringing it all back down to earth, your coding workflow as a developer is actually beautifully precise. First step, scale your data. Again, absolutely non-negotiable. Next, pick your kernel and your C value. Then, hit it with a grid search to find the absolute optimal hyperparameters. And finally, train your model and predict. That's the whole shebang. As we wrap up this explainer, I want to leave you with a little food for thought. Think about the kernel trick for a second. We took a problem that was straight up computationally impossible, computing infinite dimensions, and we bypassed it completely just by changing our mathematical perspective, solving the dual problem instead of the primal one. So if a simple shift in mathematical perspective can simulate infinite dimensions instantly, what other seemingly impossible computational boundaries could we break in machine learning just by changing how we look at them? Keep that in the back of your mind next time you're staring down a chaotic set of data.